Hi guys, good afternoon everyone. We try to give our second part of the last class, that is from the DPSP fundamental rights and fundamental duties. We shall start from the conflicts between DPSP and the fundamental rights. Basically, what DPSP said. DPSP means Directive Principle of State Policy. The directives and the principles given to the states, which is basically helpful for making policy of the state. And this policy promote the socio-economic upliftment of the society. This policy must ensure the inclusive growth of the society. This is actually the DPSP. But from independence or the coming to existence of Indian Constitution, we shall have witnessed many conflicts between these two parts of Indian Constitution. And already in the last class, I have discussed the fundamental rights, which is justiciable. It is justified by the courts, by jurisdictions, and in case of DPSP, it is non-justiciable right. Both are the rights according to the Sabru Committee of 1945. And the rights, that is DPSP, and the rights about fundamental rights, there is a big conflict. Actually, the conflict is based on who enjoys the supremacy. Fundamental rights over DPSP or DPSP over fundamental rights. And that's why our Honorable Supreme Court, we know that Supreme Court is the custodian of Indian Constitution, final interpreter of Indian Constitution, as his rule played several times in several cases based on these two backgrounds. One is fundamental rights and DPSP and their conflicts. And from Champakam Durayarajan case 1952 to Minerva Mill case 1980, we get the ultimate solution. And in between, there is many cases like Kerala Education Bill case, Gulaknath case, Keshavananda Bharati case, which is very fertile case for Indian Constitution, which gives the basic structure of Indian Constitution. And these cases actually define the shape of the fundamental rights and DPSP. In one, fundamental right enjoys the supremacy over DPSP. In another, the DPSP enjoys over the fundamental right. However, finally, in 1980, Minerva Mill case, Supreme Court gave this verdict: fundamental rights and DPSP should be balanced in nature. But what happened? Despite also Article 39B and 39C, if we look at in Indian Constitution, shows the supremacy of DPSP over fundamental rights. It's no issue, but ultimately we can say right now fundamental rights and DPSP, both are rights. One is justiciable, another one is non-justiciable, tries to maintain the balanced relation. And it is according to the final interpreter of the Indian Constitution. Okay? So, we shall start our background of DPSP. DPSP. And here it is one conflict described: fundamental rights and DPSP. Between fundamental rights and DPSP. And these conflicts may be adjusted by these cases or the verdict of Honorable Supreme Court by its by his judicial review in case of Champakam Durairajam case 1952, Kerala Education Bill 1957, Golaknath case 1967, Keshavananda Bharati case 1973, one of the landmark or the pioneer verdict which basically defines the basic structure of Indian Constitution, and Minerva Mill case 1980. And by this Supreme Court verdict, by this Supreme Court said fundamental right and choice of a fundamental right and choice of a fundamental right and DPSP always are in balanced condition. The government must ensure this, the fundamental rights and DPSP always should be in the balanced condition, and despite Article 39B and 39C, although it mentions or it shows the superiority of DPSP over the fundamental rights. However, according to the Minerva Mill case of 1980, it is the, it is the balanced position of the fundamental rights and the directive principle of state policy. So, we shall now forward the main aspects of DPSP. DPSP, Directive Principle of State Policy. What is DPSP? DPSP basically come under Part 4, Article 36 to 51 of the Constitution. It is basically borrowed from Ireland, that is the Irish Constitution, and DPSP, it is one positive connotation because we know that our fundamental rights, it is depends on the political fortune of our country, isn't it? But DPSP, it not depends on the political fortune. DPSP basically established the social and economic democracy, while the fundamental right basically established the political democracy, isn't it? So, the concept of DPSP, it is basically very wide and it is divided into three principles. Later on we discuss what about the three principles. And this DPSP, or what about DPSP, if I say again, directives, principles, some list of protocols or principles, it is directed to whom? To state. Why? To make policy. That is DPSP. So what is DPSP? It is some principles or the directives given to state which is very helpful in making their policy. That is directive principle of state policy. And in Indian Constitution, it is enlisted in Part 4, Article 36 to 51. Now, this is the concepts of or the background of this DPSP. We can say it is come under the Part 4 of Indian Constitution. It is borrowed from Irish Constitution 1937. It gives the positive connotation to establish social and economic democracy. It promotes the concepts of welfare state as well as the inclusive growth of India. It ensures the village panchayat or the developments of panchayat, organizers of village panchayats. So that's why our father of Indian Constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said, this part is actually the soul of Indian Constitution or the novel part of Indian Constitution. The soul of Indian Constitution or the novel part of Indian Constitution. And that's why another political scientist, Granville Austin, also said DPSP is the conscience of the Constitution. So, is the background of DPSP. If anybody asks you what about DPSP, you must give this information point wise. That time you will get good marks in your exam. Now, classification of DPSP. Basically, classification is based on thoughts. We know that Gandhiji as freedom fighter played very vital role in India. That's why he is called father of nation. So this classification basically based on thoughts. Socialistic, Gandhians and liberals. We know that our Indian constitution has adopted the socialistic patterns. So the principles which is responsible for making policy, it must be socialistic. Gandhiji also has promoted our national consciousness. That's why the dreams of Gandhiji also enlisted in Indian constitution, and it is come under the Gandhian principles. And liberal intellectual principles, that is based on liberalism. These are the classification. Now I have to say socialistic principles, which articles of DPSP it is come under the socialistic principles. You have to mention which articles basically come under this socialistic principles or socio-economic principles. Basically, adequate livelihood to all citizens, it is come under socialistic principles. To prevent concentration of wealth, it is come under socialistic principles. Equal pay for equal work, very important one. That is also come under Article 39. That is also come under the socialistic principle. Decent standard of living, that is also come under the socialistic principles. If we consider Gandhian principles basically promotes very important structure of or the notion of DPSP, that is the organization or organizing village panchayat. Without village panchayat, decentralization of democracy never be possible. So decentralization democracy seeks the Gandhian model or the Gandhian principles. Thereafter, promotion of educational and economic interest of the society, it must be taken into action. Thereafter, promotion of cottage industries, that is also to be taken into action according to the Gandhian principles. Now, liberal intellectual principles, it is based on, first already I have said, that is based on liberalism. And liberalism, it is means it is must be uniform for everything. That's why we are cheering for uniform civil code, which is come under Article 44, uniform civil code. Free and compulsory education for 6 to 14 years age group children, that is also come under the principle of liberal intellectual, Article 45. Thereafter, separation of judiciary from executive, it is very important initiative for the policy. That's why NJSC, National Judicial Appointment Commission, that is also declared by Supreme Court as null and void, isn't it? So all this come under the classifications or the principles of DPSP. We have to mention in our exam according to as per the articles of DPSP, and it is very important part. So what about DPSP? What about its classification? I think it is very clear to all my aspirants. So the next slide, So the next slide about the next part, that is also come under part 4A 51A. Part 4A 51A. Basically, part 4A 51A, the needs of fundamental duties, it is taken or adopted after 25 years of Indian Constitution. When the emergency was proclaimed in India in 1975, that time the necessity of fundamental duties was taken into action or taken into consideration. That's why one committee was formed, Sharon Singh Committee. This committee recommended total 10 fundamental duties primarily. Later on, in 86th Amendment Act 2002, enlisted or added another fundamental duties. That's why we have 11 fundamental duties right now. And fundamental duties, it is very significant for all the citizens of India, and we as good citizens of our country must discharge our duties, because one way we are cheering our rights, so why do we forget to play our duties, to discharge our duties? We must not forget. That's why always we have said rights and duties are complementary to each other. And in Indian Constitution, the complementary scope are also described. We also try to describe this complementary scopes. So this fundamental duties, it is taken from USSR Constitution right now, which is Russia, and these duties are only to the citizen of India. It is not extended to the foreigners. But what we have seen in case of rights, some rights are enlisted to Indian Constitution, which is not only given to the Indian citizens only, but also given to the foreigners also. And if any of the adverse situation comes, that time our duties never be discharged. Our duties never be disapproved, but our rights may be suspended, except Article 20 and 21. So this is very important notion. So what about our fundamental duties, or what is our fundamental duties? The list of 11 fundamental duties right now apply. Article 51A. Article 51A. A. So Article 51A basically said to avoid the Constitution, respects its institution, national flag, national anthem, not national song. Very important. So which is not mentioned? That is not national song. To pay respect to national song, it is ultimately depends on you, but it is not the fundamental duties to you. Next, Article 51A, B. To cherish and follow the noble ideas of our freedom fighters. 51C, to uphold the sovereignty, unity and integrity of our nation. 51D, to defend our countries and render national services when it is called upon to do so. Now 51E, promote harmony and spirit, very important, common brotherhood. Any of the derogatory practices to women, it must be devoid. So this is the fundamental duties. And in the next slide, the remaining fundamental duties, I just want to show you. 51F. In case of 51F, so 51F, that is the value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. That is, and next, protect and improve the natural environment. That is also our fundamental duties. Scientific temper, development, humanism, spirit of inquiry. It is also our fundamental duties. To safeguard public property and to abjure violence. That is also fundamental duties. Strive towards excellence in all spheres of individuals and collective activity. That is also our fundamental duties. So, this is the fundamental duties, and these fundamental duties we are avoiding to respect our Indian Constitution, and being a citizen of India, we must follow our notions. So, this is the class about fundamental rights, DPSP, fundamental duties. I think এই ক্লাসটা সবার ভালো লাগবে এবং সবার কাজে আসবে পরীক্ষার প্রিপারেশনের জন্য। তাই আমি আপনাদের সবাইকে বলবো আপনারা সেটা আপনাদের ফ্রেন্ড সার্কেলের মধ্যে শেয়ার করে দেবেন এবং আমাদের এই যে ক্লাসের প্রয়াস সেটাকে আরও উত্তরোত্তর বৃদ্ধি করতে সাহায্য করবেন। All the best for all aspirants for coming exam. Stay focused, stay prepared. Okay.